could talk about games played by Ryan and Mike. A modern, a retro video game show. Yes, we talk about games and sometimes other stuff like Star Trek. It's a blast, our gaming podcast.
Welcome to another episode of Talk About Games, the show where Mike and I each take a game book club style and talk about it.
So what game do you have today?
So I have Demon Slayer today.
Okay.
And the reason why I picked Demon Slayer is, I'm sorry, I decided to learn Japanese for two reasons. The first was I watched this anime and it was freaking cool. And the second reason is I'm publishing video games in Japan and there's so much that's in Japanese that it's like you better brush up.
Now the Demon Slayer I know is Buffy.
Well, that's
you're
a
not
vampire slayer.
No, oh, she's a demon slayer too.
Oh, yeah?
She's a slayer and she slays all the
She slays?
baddies.
Oh, that's cool.
But so tell me about Demon
So
Slayer.
I'm going to tell you about Demon Slayer the anime because the anime, if I tell you about the anime, you'll know about the game because it's the same thing. The storyline's the same. Most of the video in the anime is in the game. So here's the idea of Demon Slayer. There is a boy named Tanjiro, and Tanjiro is a good guy. He takes care of his family. Mm-hmm. He goes to town to get them charcoal for the winter.
Okay.
He comes back and his whole family's dead. His whole family's dead because they were killed by a demon. And his sister, Netsuko, is now a demon herself.
Okay. And she got turned to one somehow.
She got turned by the one that attacked them.
Okay.
So he goes on a journey. He ends up meeting someone who trains him in this demon slaying sword art called water breathing. Mm-hmm. He has to do like very classic, like it's a classic like training, like very much like Karate Kid type thing. And in the end of it,
so he had to paint the fence and wash the car.
Well, he had to like run up a mountain and stuff like that. But it's like the same idea,
right?
You know, but at the end of it, he has to cut a boulder in half with a sword.
Okay.
And he ends up
break the ice.
Yeah, sure. So he ends up doing it because these two dead kids train him. Mm-hmm. And he doesn't know they're dead.
Okay.
So then he goes to become a demon slayer. And he has to survive on a mountain for a night. I forget. It might have been 7 days. I forget how long it is. But he has to survive on a mountain.
Okay.
And he ends up killing the demon on the mountain that killed the kids that trained him.
Okay.
While that's all happening, demons in this world have vampire rules. They can't be out in the daytime.
Sure.
There's a few other things. They can't cross these flowers called wisteria.
Yeah.
And they can't be out in the sun.
Okay.
And the only way they can die is by getting chopped in half, their head chopped off by what's called a Nichi ring sword.
Yeah.
You know what's interesting about that? Learning Japanese. Nichi is sun.
Okay.
And Rin, I don't know what it is, but that's what the sword is.
Sun
so
sword?
It's a sun sword.
Okay.
The sword,
and the sun kills them.
The
so
sword
the sun,
actually stores the sunlight in
sunlight power.
But it's interesting that like it matches.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he has to keep his sister in a box that he carries on his back.
Okay.
Because she can't be out at night.
Okay.
But when she's out and she fights, she's a badass.
Yeah.
And she literally kicks their heads off. But she can't kill them. They regenerate.
Is the box like fuming because like she's in it? You know, because the sun, you know.
No, because they die like instantly if the sun hits them. Like you could be out in the sun for like a second, and that's too much.
Not to bring it back to like Buffy again, but on Buffy, what they do is like vampires can move in the day, but you have to like a lot of them will like throw a coat over their head, but the coat's like you know, like smoke coming off the top of it and shit.
Yeah. So it all comes. He finds out that the guy who killed his family was this guy named Muzan Kabutsi. And I may have pronounced it wrong, but that's who it is. Mm-hmm. And he ends up very early on seeing him in a town, and you start thinking, oh, he's a badass. Tanjiro is a badass. He's killing all these demons left and right, but he keeps finding more and more powerful demons. And he's in this Demon Slayer Corps, and he meets friends. He meets this guy with a bull helmet on it, and this guy who is really timid, and he like passes out. But when he passes out, he has like this other personality that's like a badass. Right? So he has these friends, and then there's the higher demon slayers called the Hashira who are doing it. So that's the show. In the show, he meets a demon, he gets assigned to kill a demon, he does his thing, he kills the demon or something happens, and then at the end of every episode, you kind of hear how the demon's life went bad that made them kind of end up becoming a demon and doing it.
Okay.
So you usually hear like the tragic story of what made them a demon. And that's the show.
Now, when did this show like start? Like, how long has this been around?
So I just told you about half of the first season.
Yeah.
There is the first season. There is the movie, which is called Mugen Train.
Okay.
And then there's a few other like offshoot things, but that's what the game covers. And then there is season 2 is just when this episode airs, it will have just started.
Okay. So this is going on now.
Yes.
Okay.
And this is like the hottest. Like we went to Otakon to show the games. And we were at Otakon, like half the people had like Demon Slayer merchandise. It's super hot right now.
Okay.
And the game just came out, and I played it on PS5. And I love the show. It started kind of adult, but then it got it's anime. So it's, it's targeted for kids.
Sure.
This particular one.
Right.
Not all anime is targeted for kids, but this one obviously is targeted for kids.
So today we're going to be talking about Frogger.
So I got the game.
Yeah.
And the game, I have some points.
Yeah.
If you are a fan of this anime and you want more Demon Slayer, the game's great. The way I would look at the game is a retelling of the story. It's the anime with a pretty basic fighting game bolted onto it.
Okay.
So if
you have to really care about the show
you
and
have to
stuff.
care. The graphics in this game.
So does this game not hold up on its own?
It does not hold up on its
Okay.
own. The graphics. Okay, so this is the hottest anime. So the graphics are insane.
Yeah.
It's the most amazing cell shaded anime thing outside of Dragon Ball Z Fighters.
Yeah.
It's insane. Like the money they spent on the look of this game is fucking amazing. And on the PS5, it looks sick.
Do you remember when we played Attack on Titan?
Yeah.
I knew nothing about the anime, but we played the game, and I remembered mostly enjoying it because we were going from like rooftop to rooftop with like a grappling gun type of thing in that game, and there was big like monsters attacking the walls and stuff. And I thought that game was actually pretty fun at least for what we played of it. And it's always nice when because, somebody what if that's their first experience with the thing is the game?
Right.
You want somebody to get into your show. Like, gameplay with a game always has to come first. So it's, I don't like hearing that when, it's like, I feel like with this, correct me if I'm wrong, but what I'm hearing is that it's like, the show is great, and then they're going to have cutscenes in it, and they're great, but then you get to the gameplay, and it's like, eh.
You just kind of walk around and like collect clips.
Yeah.
You walk around, collect clips from the show, and then you do the fighting game. The fighting game is competent. It's not bad.
Okay.
And it's cool, like dodging the attacks and the systems and things like that. A lot of people have complained that there's like some infinite combos and stun locks and things that shouldn't be in the game.
Why does it like break the game?
Yeah. It also sucks that like Tanjiro is just a crappier version of one of the other characters. Mm-hmm. He's the main character. He should be a fighter that you would want to pick. But if you were playing the game for like competition, like this game will never be in tournaments because it's just it's like a solved format.
Sure.
Right? But if let's say that you're a 13-year-old kid and you love Demon Slayer and you want to play a fighting game and you want to do Demon Slayer stuff, it's cool.
Okay.
It is really cool.
It's for fans of the franchise that play a game.
Yeah. It's for people drinking the Kool-Aid, and it looks great. And the fighting game mechanics are competent. It's not cheap. It's not broken.
Right.
It's not. There's nothing.
So it's fine.
There's nothing wrong with it.
So it's fine.
It's fine. But if you're not a fan of, number one, anime, this game is not for you. If you're not a fan of Demon Slayer, like you actively don't like it, this game is definitely not for you.
Pull you in. Yeah.
And if you're looking for it to be as competent as Dragon Ball Z Fighters, this game is not for you. Dragon Ball Z Fighters is a much better fighting game than Demon Slayer is. Now, Demon Slayer is beautiful, great use of your PlayStation 5, looks good. It gives you a lot of like backstory and little things from the characters. If you want to play as the characters because you love them, everybody's doing it. There's so much merchandise. It's awesome for that. It's easy. This game is easy. Going from Metroid Dread, having to do the counterattacks in that, to doing the counterattacks in this, I was like, I felt like a superstar because the timing is so much easier.
I always get messages from people that they want me to look at Evangelion.
Evangelion.
Do you?
Yeah.
Play
yeah.
that?
You should.
That?
You should watch that.
Okay.
Evangelion is like an amazing. Like, okay, so there's mech anime, right?
Yeah.
Like Gundam.
Yeah.
Or Macross, and they're
I know. I like Macross. Macross has a lot of old
shooters,
shmups that I like a lot. Yeah.
So there's mech anime, and mech anime like it's basically like hero stuff. Evangelion like subverts it because like the mechs aren't cool; they're scary. You know, it deals with religious shit.
Yeah.
It deals with apocalyptic things.
I was surprised to find out that there was an N64 game of that.
Yeah.
Which I didn't know until like recently, but it only came out in Japan.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wouldn't be able to read it, but maybe you would.
The other thing that's kind of cool is like all the Evangelions have numbers on them. And Rei, who's the zero, Rei is zero in Japanese. So her name's Rei. It's zero, and she's zero because she's like doesn't have a backstory. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like as I'm watching more anime, now that I know more Japanese, like it's all more interesting and it's
making
very
more sense and everything.
More symbolism. Like even in English dubs and English subs, like I'm watching like Dragon Ball now subtitled, and like I pick up so much. And when you pick up a sentence and you know what people said, it feels awesome.
Right.
It's really cool.
That's cool.
But I like.
I guess you do have to watch a lot of media. I hear would hear a lot people that want to learn English that don't know English will watch whatever the Police Academy movies or like Star Trek or something to like learn English. So you're doing that for Japanese and watching a lot of anime.
I do a lot of immersion because you need to hear it in action. Immersion's important. The other thing is I bought like a dozen children's books from Japan, and I diagram all the sentences in the children's books because the children's books have speech patterns. Like just learning vocabulary is not enough. I use this thing called WaniKani, which teaches you kanji. And it's great. I'm learning kanji, I'm learning vocabulary. But if you don't learn how it fits in a sentence and how people actually use it, you have to understand that the psychology of this language is totally different from the psychology of our language.
Yeah.
Totally different. So what you think works doesn't work. You have to hear somebody say it.
Right.
It's crazy. It's it's just people
totally different
people
culture.
on the other side of the planet that think totally different from you.
Differently.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
And it's a great puzzle.
Yeah.
And I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah.
So and it's helping me like
that's what I think is more interesting about than just like you can memorize the symbols and the letters and all that, but the idea of the different train of thought.
Yeah.
And the different way of thinking. That's the more interesting part to me.
Yeah.
Because it's like they have these concepts and ideas that we don't think that way.
Exactly.
And that's super interesting.
Yeah. I mean, like they don't even think of the days of the week the same. Like you go back to like Secret of Mana, the way it presents the days of the week is the way that they think of it, not the way that we do.
Right.
Right. It's like why are there so many things about the elements? Because the elements are relevant.
Right.
It's cool.
That almost makes me wonder, like, is Mario and like some of these games make more sense?
Absolutely.
To their culture.
Absolutely 100%.
Yeah.
It's constantly cool.
Interesting.
It's like learning Japanese allows you to unlock meaning. Like, cuz we play like my life has a lot to do with video games.
Sure.
And a lot to do with movies. And watching video games and watching movies, it unlocks deeper meaning, which makes it make a lot more sense. And it's interesting, like Clock Tower, like that game that we covered on the channel. So much changes in the meaning of horror when you experience like what are the horrors of Japan. What
and obviously, I play a lot of video games. Video games mean so much to me, but I get the deepest meaning out of Imzadi.
Here we go.
The Star Trek: The Next Generation book. Yeah.
No, it's good. I like that we got gray-haired Riker on there.
The deepest meaning comes from when Jonathan Frakes comes out with his robe on.
Yeah,
that's the deep meaning.
I'm sure. I'm sure Marina Sirtis found deep meaning in that. That's good. So that's mine. That's what I'm talking about.
That's cool. No, that's very interesting. It's probably not a game that I
don't play it.
Might play, but it's interesting, and I'm glad you're learning the language. And I think that's going to help you immensely. And I think it's a great decision to spend your time doing that because it's going to just improve your wealth of knowledge and your life and. In many, many ways, and with playing video games. So yeah. My game today is Cruis'n Blast.
Cruis'n Blast,
completely different. Cruis'n Blast, USA, Cruis'n USA, all that. So it came from Cruis'n USA, and it's a series that's been around for. They had like Cruis'n Exotica, and all the Cruis'n games.
Not many games have survived the arcades to the present day, like almost none.
Right.
But right now, you can go to the Regal Cinema near here and play Cruis'n Blast in the arcade.
Very few things, and maybe Street Fighter, and like I see Jurassic Park machines around,
right?
But not much.
Maybe Time Crisis,
maybe.
Yeah,
but Cruis'n Blast. So you go back in time to that era. There was a lot of driving games. And games where you could like get on like a motorcycle, like Sega was doing a lot of that kind of stuff, and like rally games and all this stuff. So the original was in the arcade. You'd sit down in the cockpit or whatever you want to call it. Just sit down in the driving seat, and it was fun to play those games. Then they ported them all over to the N64. There was several of them, and I think they did some after that. But it had been a really, really long time actually between Cruis'n games. It's not like there was one like 4 years ago or 6 years ago. I think it's been many years since any Cruis'n game. So, this game came out on Switch. I was like, oh, a Cruis'n game. That kind of like took me by surprise because it's like, oh, I haven't thought about that. So here's an old franchise that they're bringing back that, kind of came as a surprise. So I was like, all right, I'll try that. I like driving games and got a chance to play it. I played it. And first of all, just the first thing you're going to notice about this game are the graphics. Now, two things about the graphics with this game. It's super colorful, super vibrant, and it should be. It's like a fun 90s style driving game. But the other thing about the graphics is when I was looking at the graphics, they're like flashy, but it also kind of looks like a Dreamcast game.
Right.
Like it looks like it could have been on Xbox 360 or PS3 or something. Like it doesn't look like a PS5 game.
Yeah.
But that doesn't I don't think that hurts it at all because as far as the gameplay goes, and that's the most important thing, it did all the things that I wanted to see out of it. As I played the game, I found I'm a person that I like to bitch about things.
Yeah.
And I could not find one thing about the game that I didn't like, other than the load times were a little long sometimes.
Really? That's interesting.
In between the loading the next thing, and not like PS2 level like loading bad times, but it was kind of like, all right, come on, hurry up with the load times. But the game's fantastic, so I just want to tell you a little bit about it. So what you do in this game is you pick a car and you go into the races and you want to unlock other cars. And in order to do that on each course, there's keys you got to pick up. So you're going down the road, you pick up a key, but the keys are hidden throughout the stages, kind of like finding a coin in the Mario game.
Oh, that's interesting.
You know, so and you keep going back into the same stages to try to find the coin. So you might have to go down one path or another path or over a building or something, or it might be inside of a box that you have to break or something to get the key. So if you collect enough keys, after the races are done, you go back into the menus, and then it's like, oh, I got 9 keys. Now I can unlock like a car or motorcycle. And there's all different things you can get. You can get like, you can get a dinosaur to ride on, which is cool. Which is actually really hilarious because it's like they're skins basically. So like the dinosaur is replacing a car, and some of the things look really like it looks really funny. Like the dinosaur is still like it's still got like the engine. And
they
shit.
don't even have like
they don't. It's just like a skin.
That's funny.
But it's funny though. And you can be like a helicopter. You can be whatever, a whole bunch of different things. You can be a unicorn.
But they don't affect gameplay. They all work the same. Do they have different stats or
so? They do have different stats. All the cars are a little bit different. Like one car might have a little bit more speed than the other, or a little bit more traction or whatever than the other car. So they all are a little different. But one thing about this is this game also does have experience. To a point. So when you first start playing and you're going through a course and you're trying to take first place in these races, well, if you're taking third place or you're having trouble getting in first place, you play again and again and you're getting experience because your car isn't like leveled up yet. So, but your car has a maximum. So a maximum experience. So
each car, or
I believe each different car has experience. So let's say you're playing with your first car. If you get your car to the max experience, which is level 5, it's done. And then the experience thing is gone. That doesn't even come up anymore. Like you've maxed out your car. And at that point, it's kind of like you can either keep playing with that car forever, or you can go on to the next skin or the next next car. But the way the game plays is you've got it's called Cruis'n Blast because you have a blast. You have these nitros, which reminds me, you go back in time to what's the name of it? Super Off-Road, on NES or the arcade with the wheels or whatever, where you get the nitros to go like around the level. So it's like that. But you get a certain amount of nitros, and in the levels you can collect money, so you can buy more nitros. But what's good is they don't let you buy you can't buy like 1,000 nitros and just boost through the whole thing. You can buy like 5, and that's it. And then so they don't make it totally like unfair. So the idea is you're trying to take first place in all the different races, and if you do well enough, then you can take gold and everything, and then it unlocks the next set of courses. And then you go through all of them, and I did all of them on normal, and it took me some time to get through the whole game on normal. And your reward, if you get gold on everything in normal, is you unlock hard mode, and you also get a bunch of like cars and stuff. Like you can become you can be a UFO. I'm like looking at the Space Invader UFO thing, so you can be like a UFO and different things. I tend to just play as a normal car. But it's fun though that they have all the different skins. Like it'll because if you're showing the game to like one of your friends or something like that, it'd be like oh, check out the unicorn, or check out these like funny things you can play as. But the main thing that I want to say about this game, and the thing that I find important, is I like that we are living in era. It's 2021, and it's amazing to me that there's a company out there that's still putting out a game that has that arcade driving game feeling that we got in the 90s. Because back then, or in this game, it's just giving me that feeling of how those games were when you actually physically went into an arcade back then, and you'd sit down and you'd play these driving games, and this ridiculous stuff would happen in the game. Where like you're driving down the road and then there's like a giant Yeti in front of you, and then the ground breaks away and your car falls, and now and then there's dinosaurs everywhere, and then there's a fucking T-Rex, and you go through the T-Rex's mouth, and it's just this absolutely ridiculous stuff that would never happen in real life, but it was an arcade game, and they didn't pretend that it was anything other than a fun arcade game. And this game, the fact that it's on Switch and you can have it in your house, it's like kind of amazing, and it's amazing that it's new and that somebody out there thought of that. They're like, hey, let's bring back that sense of, fun and craziness that like being in the 90s arcades and playing those games had.
I hate that we don't get those games anymore. There used to be so many. There's Outrun. There's Hydro Thunder, which was that kind of thing. There was a snowmobile one that it was cool. I don't remember what that was called, but there was so many. And then you go back to like even before that, Pole Position with the
Pole Position was a little more straightforward. But I mean, but games that you're mentioning just sort of had this like over the top feeling, or like even like the Jurassic Park game at the time where you get into this thing and just like all this ridiculous stuff is happening in the game, and it's just nice that this game exists, because I feel like this is just something that wouldn't have ever happened, but here it is.
I also think that they put out the arcade of it. They didn't have to put it on Switch, but then they went the extra mile and put it on Switch. Right? No, that's super cool.
No, it's great. So anything else about it is that like, so you can just like in most racing games, you can drift and all that, and I find that the drifting is easier to do in this game than really in like Mario Kart or in what's the name of the game?
Like Crash Team Racing.
Thank you, Crash, like the new Nitro one. I was playing that. I like that game a lot. The thing real quick about that game is the Crash Racing. In Crash Racing, you have to take first place or you can't move on. And I really like that. So it like forces you to be good at the game, and that's a hard game. Where Cruis'n Blast is much more forgiving than that. It's the Cruis'n Blast isn't super.
So
hard.
Out of Crash Team Racing, Sonic All-Stars, and Mario Kart, which one do you think is the hardest?
Crash.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Okay.
But Mario Kart very much levels the playing field because it's Nintendo. Like we talked about that. Like you can be in last place and get a lightning bolt or a blue shell and then end up in first place and all that business.
It's interesting that racing games have so much variety. Like there's like the kart racing games, like I just talked about. Now there's this like Cruis'n Blast is like its own like 90s arcade game, right? And then there's games that are kind of in the middle of that, like games like Top Gear, which are more realistic, more realistic, but they're not Forza Horizon and Gran Turismo.
They're not simulators, which those type of games are beautiful to look at. And I got into a little phase for a little while many years ago where I would play like Gran Turismo and all that, and I kind of would play them and I enjoyed them because I just like looking at how beautiful they were, but I don't find them very fun at all. I like them more. I like shit like this, like a Cruis'n Blast. It's just like insane shit. There's a part where, dude, fucking a UFO comes in. It shoots a giant donut off of a donut factory. The donut pops off and goes on the road, and the giant donut's going down the road.
I love that.
And then it flips, and then you got to go through the middle of the donut. And
that's so cool.
Just shit like that. And then when you go through the middle of the donut, the ground breaks away, and then you fall into a volcano, and you're driving on like lava and shit.
So literally,
it's shit like that.
Anything could happen.
Anything happens.
That's cool.
There's a part where an earthquake happens. You're going down this huge slope and you look in front of you and it's a field of like 747s. But then an earthquake happens, so the fucking like crack goes through the thing, and then all the fucking 747s like fall into the crack, but you're like heading towards it, and then you gotta like jump over it and shit. It's like just like super fun.
It sounds like they had a lot of they had a lot of fun making this game. Like
I get that sense too. Like it was like they really were enjoying it, and the fact that they were enjoying it comes across.
Yeah.
You know,
I think this game's not going to get a lot of love.
Probably not.
You definitely need to have these mid-market games where they're not trying to be the big hit, and it's not an indie game. It's kind of in the middle, and I like that.
And that's a good way to describe it. It's exactly what it is.
Yeah. So I'll probably play it when I go to the theater.
Yeah.
More than I'll play it on my Switch. But I'm glad it exists, and that's cool.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, that's Cruis'n Blast.